Oh,
Smooth.
sorry.
Wow. This is very cliche. Hey! Mwah. So hi guys, as you've read, you know what this video is about.
We're in a parking garage.
We are in a parking garage because I was very adamant I didn't want to shoot this in our home. Technically, all of this was supposed to be over sooner, but because of time management issues that were out of our control, it's happening now, and this was supposed to be filmed in our old house because it just felt cathartic that way, because it was like, look, we're leaving it all behind, we're starting a new life, we're going somewhere else, we're never gonna talk about this again. But then things happened, and then we moved, and then I don't want it in my healing place.
So instead, we are in the Irvine Spectrum parking lot. You can hear cars honking in the background for no good reason because people are assholes.
So I guess we'll just jump right into it.
We're not asking you to stop watching random encounters. We're not asking you to attack random encounters, to tear anyone down or hurt anyone. Enough hurt has happened already, and we want that all to be over. Disclaimer, yes, I do get some of the money if you do watch. We just need to say all of this for ourselves. This is a video about getting things off our chest.
This video is probably going to be a little hard to navigate because we're probably going to go back and forth and kind of make circles and stuff. I felt the need to make this video with Peter because it was a huge part of our life, and I feel like I owe it to you guys to give you as complete of a history as we can. The good, the bad, and everything in between. That's why this is happening. And it's happening now because everything is finally over.
Yeah, this is us ideally closing this chapter
definitely
of our lives, which is really exciting. I don't even remember how many years ago, 7, 8, 6, I started Random Encounters with AJ, and it was a really exciting time. And I've done a lot of stuff that I'm really proud of. I don't remember this, but my mother, she remembers me coming up to her at the very beginning of all of this and saying, AJ has a tendency to take over creatively anything that's happening. And I told Connie, this is a thing I can handle. I can handle this. And she was like, that's usually a red flag in any partnership, but go ahead and give it a try. So here I am many years later, and I have left for the very reason that she said I would probably leave, which is kind of amusing. So yeah, I've spent a few nights agonizing over whether I'm making the right decision, but I'm excited for what's coming up.
I keep constantly asking him if he's okay. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. So
Fine.
I did a video about how I met these guys on their channel, but basically I ran a convention, very small. It was out of a cafe. I mean, maybe it was more like a get-together than a convention, but we marketed it as a convention. And AJ approached me on Facebook saying, hey, look, I do this thing on the internet where I make video game musicals. Is it okay if I come and do a panel at your thing? And I said, sure, why not? And at the time, he came, and I thought he was pretty cool. So we became friends and stuff. And then I met Peter shortly after, and then my living situation fell out from underneath me, and I needed a place to live, but I needed to stay in California because there was a project that I was attached to that would later fall through, and I didn't know that. But at the time,
Sorry.
It's okay. It's a boring story. At the time, I thought I needed to stay in California, and they were like, hey, why don't you just come live with us? So I did. And I was poor. I didn't have a job yet. So they were like, hey, instead of paying rent, just help us make all these musicals and stuff. And I thought that was pretty swanky. The micromanaging thing in my story is that at first it felt like a boss, delegating what an employee should do. So if you ever go into retail or customer service or whatever, your manager will be like, all right, this is how we do things in this place. And they, bring you up to speed about how you're supposed to do your job. So in the beginning, that's what it felt like. It was basically, this is what you do. This is how you do it, go at it. So I never really felt like I was being controlled. I sort of had the opposite thing from you, I guess, in that respect.
I had been working with AJ for years before I started RE,
so
fair. I kind of
already
already knew his modus operandi, I guess.
Okay.
I was like, I'm starting a business with this guy that I've worked with for a long time, and I know how he works, and I know that it might get on my nerves a little bit, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
You didn't have the benefit of that
No, I
information.
didn't. No. I missed the early days.
The early days
They were so fun.
really
They
good.
We were definitely a family back then, and it was, I really do miss those first 2 years. They were very nice.
it really did start going downhill once we started dating.
It really, I don't know what happened. So like literally it was like night and day, guys. Basically we started dating and he just kind of flipped a whole 180. It was really bizarre. He accused me of doing drugs shortly after. We were at a convention up in Oakland. I forget what it was called or whatever, but like I wanted to take a walk and AJ wanted to chaperone me to make sure I wasn't buying drugs. And in that walk, we had a conversation that I will never fucking repeat to anyone. And it was just basically tearing Peter apart limb from limb. I gave Peter like the bare bones of what it was, but I can't. It's icky and gross, and I've never heard him talk about anybody like that before. And that was probably the turning point for me to be like, I should be a little wary of this person. I think I kept, I put that, back in the back of my mind for a while because it was the first time that I had come into a situation that wasn't explicitly, bad. Because, it really was good for those first 2 years, and I was like, well, maybe we all freak out about things and we all act weird sometimes when, situations changed and whatever. So I guess I excused it as that, and I didn't really think much of it until years later when I was all like, oh, maybe that was maybe I should have read a little bit more into that.
I guess the biggest example of how crushed I feel or felt creatively was that, over the course of many, many years, I've made a lot of different suggestions for different types of content that we might develop. None of them ever saw the light of day. And that was really frustrating to me. And then
I helped get your music ideas out there because I fought him a lot on that. I was like, look, you want your music to sound better? Let Peter actually do music stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's true that I did get to start to stretch a little bit on music, and a lot of that was because we were pushing different styles that wouldn't have happened naturally. I made a lot of suggestions for content. Some of the content was cheap, some of it was expensive. I thought all of it had merit, but it never happened, obviously. And then Nate came in, and
that's when things really started going downhill.
And he immediately got Shovel Werewolf greenlit, and we devoted, an entire over a month's worth of resources to a show for Nate, and that was great. I'm glad that he got that through for himself. But it was just really frustrating to be like, I've been here for 7 years or however the hell long, and none of my stuff ever went through, and then this was immediately greenlit and brought all the way to production. And I mean, it didn't get a lot of viewership, but it still is, it's already had several seasons. Taken in isolation, that's just, a business choice. You say, okay, well, this particular idea doesn't cost a lot, we can totally do it. But taken in context of my history with being creatively stifled in a lot of different ways, it's part of a pattern, and that was kind of a really big part of the pattern.
That's about the time I started feeling like I was being replaced and stuff, because I was like, well, I have seniority here, and yeah, I get they have history together because they've been best friends since grade school or something or whatever, but at the same time I was all like, but we are making Random Encounters what it is, and then this guy comes in and just gets to do whatever he feels like. That didn't feel right to me. And I think that is what started pushing me over the edge to start acting out. And you both were like, you're not being replaced and stuff, and I'm like, really? And I have no ill will towards Nate or anything that he's accomplished or whatever. I
actually think Shovel Werewolf is an amusing and a good show, and I think that it was a good idea, and it was reasonably well executed given the budget that it had, and so on and so forth. So it's I'm not like, oh, he got this really terrible thing produced.
I think for me, what it symbolized was that his ideas were more important than mine. I invented Gamernality, for instance, and it also wasn't getting good viewership. It was still something that I wanted to do and keep doing, but then because it wasn't making the viewership that you guys wanted, you just decided to close that. So I think that tipped me over the edge a little bit too. I questioned all the time, why did you guys shut that down? I did exactly what I said I was going to do with it, and they decided to cut it instead of just giving it back to me to work on more, which is what I really wanted in the end, but never got to get.
The things that I've said so far, they don't seem like huge deals, and maybe they shouldn't ever.
But they stack.
They do stack, and at some point this year, I literally wanted to kill myself. Sparrow was in the car with me, and we were trying to do something creative. And in trying to do something creative, I just spiraled out of control to the point where I literally wanted to drive the car off of the mountain that we were on. And the only reason I didn't was because she was in here, so I turned around on the highway, which is not something you're supposed to do, but whatever. Better than dying. The point is that, you know, these things stack. You can't point at someone greenlighting Shovel Werewolf and say this is evil. What you can do is realize that over time, more and more things were shut down. There are multiple jokes within Random Encounters that are literally making fun of my ability to create. And, you know,
It's true.
like, friends joke, right? That's fine. But, you know, it built up,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize it was building up until that, you know, that moment where I was like, shit, I can't be creative, not because I'm not creative, but because I have this mental block to it. I think every time that I'm creative that I'm going to get made fun of, or that someone's going to say, no, you can't do that, or, you know, whatever. It is serious.
Yeah.
And the worst feeling is knowing how serious it is, but not being able to explain to someone how it could possibly be that serious, because none of the individual elements are serious.
This is why emotional abuse is like really hard to talk about, because some of it is really obvious and is easy to be like, that was the problem, but like a lot of it is just this shit that stacks, and you need to have the whole history in order to be able to point to it, to be like, look, this is why it was emotionally abusive. Because it wasn't inherently like this man is very evil and like, you know, hates us and wants us to like burn, but like his actions led us to feel emotionally, you know, traumatized. And like, I know some people out there are like, well, that's not emotional abuse, you just feel bad. It's why, it's another reason why it's hard to talk about, is because a lot of people don't believe you. They point to reasons why it's not, and it's like that doesn't matter in the end. What matters is that it happened, this is how we feel, and we need closure. It happened, and it needs to not happen anymore. And it needs to not hold you back in life. That night when Peter was contemplating suicide, he was literally crying on the couch because he's like, I'm just not creative. And I had to like point to his pictures from like the time he drew them in high school, and I was like, look, you are creative. You drew these.
I still think one of them is total shit.
You had it at one point, so something happened and now you feel like you don't. My whole thing with AJ is that we had fights, like about just about anything that you can imagine when it came to the company, and sometimes in my personal life, which shouldn't have been a thing at all. But yeah, I didn't really have anything, any beef with him creatively. Actually, you know what? That's not quite true. I did have a little beef with him creatively because I was spending so much time working on Random Encounter stuff that my channel was secondary. And in the beginning, I was okay with that, but later on, I wasn't, because I wanted to actually focus on my YouTube channel and make it, you know, successful, or at least try to make it successful, but I couldn't juggle that. I have like a bunch of like loose papers that should be in a binder, just like about ideas that I've jotted down over the years. It's like so many. And I couldn't do them because I wasn't able to have my own time to work on my own stuff, because I always had to be on call for whatever they needed me to do.
Another thing, and this is at least partially my fault, was compensation. When you do work and you make an entity a lot of money, you expect to be fairly compensated for it. And if I'm perfectly honest, and I was, for a large portion of the time that we were actually paying Sparrow, I was the one in charge of the money of that particular fund, and we did not pay her what she was worth. We did not pay her what she made back, you know, into the company. We did not fairly compensate her. And I knew that was happening, and, you know, I mentioned it multiple times. And we, you know, I just didn't push hard enough for it. But it shouldn't have been something that needed to be pushed for, because, you know, we had the money to pay a little bit more. And we just never did. And then when Nate came, we paid a considerable amount more.
It was basically the typical workplace. The woman makes way less than the man does, rather. It was definitely that. And
you could easily say, oh, well, it wasn't about her gender. It was about she didn't go to film school, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes the intent doesn't matter as much as it's still the reality.
And I tweeted about this recently, even, is that there's a difference between compensation and fair compensation, and you can accept both, but one does not equate the other. For instance, if you have a friend who wants you to drive 9 hours to New Mexico or whatever, and he's only going to pay you 20 in gas, like, that's compensation, and you can accept it, but it's not fair. It's not even close to fair. That doesn't even cover gas for to go to New Mexico. I think I fought him on that once. Basically, we had a lot of fights about a lot of different things, and I believe that is also a tipping point to what soured our relationship.
And this one's on you. You didn't leave when you had the chance.
I didn't leave. Okay, so... So remember when I, like, back when, like, Peter and I started dating, like, there was a time, like, right before we moved to a new place where it would have been ideal to just be like, we're gonna leave. It's going to be fine. But our relationship was making improvements, so I was led into a false belief that, like, oh, well, you know, maybe it was just like, oh, things are changing and I'm scared about it, but now, like, it's calming down and we're fine, and it really wasn't that at all.
And I was just like, you know that you two don't mesh and that this will get bad. And
I really believe that it was going to be fixed. I really believed that it was going to be fine, and it definitely was not fine.
Yeah, it bugs me to this day that we didn't just up and leave then.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about leaving RE. I'm talking about just, you know, we literally could have moved one house over. There was a house on the same street that was for rent, and we were like, what if we just rented that place? What if Sparrow and I lived right there? But we didn't, and that was the end of that story.
So once we moved to the Hello Neighbor house, that's when everything really got terrible. That's when I was starting to be treated like I was subhuman. Because our lives were definitely changing. So, like, you know, Nate came onto the scene, so AJ had his best friend back in his life. AJ's relationship with Gwen was being very serious, so, like, he was spending all of his time with her, which is fine, but, like, it was changing so much that it felt like he was forgetting who was with him at his lowest. I used to do all the cooking, and I used to, you know, do, like, not all the cleaning, but, like, you know, I had a dedicated, I'm going to clean the house day. We should all clean the house on this day, and that was fine until it wasn't anymore for whatever reason. Like, I don't even know what the reasons were. We got into a huge fight about who cleans the house. I remember that one. He was like, no, you clean the whole house. I'm like, what do you fucking mean I clean the whole house? I'm not going to clean the whole house by myself. You live here. But you don't pay rent. That was always his thing. That was always his thing with anything that was, like, not related to random encounters. Was always the personal stuff. Was like, you don't pay rent, so you need to do all of this stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not. No, I contribute. If I wasn't contributing, I would totally agree. Yes, I clean the whole house myself, but I was contributing to the greater goal. It got to the point where, like, I felt like I wasn't a person anymore.
I definitely saw that happening, and I think I told you multiple times, I feel like you're not being treated like a person, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything about it because I was an asshole.
He didn't.
I definitely noticed. Yay, points for Peter.
But he didn't. I would always be like, hey, look, he's not listening to me. You need to talk to him. He respects you. He doesn't respect me.
And I'd be like, but this is between two adults, and you should be able to take care of it yourself.
I remember one, like, really huge fight that was, like, really felt like I was nothing anymore, or that I was just nobody and just discarded trash or whatever. And it's when we did move to the Hello Neighbor house, and it was like, okay, it's time to clean the house, because, you know, that's what adults do. You clean the house. Like, some people clean it more often. I usually clean it once a month. And he was like, no, you clean the house. And I was like, excuse me? And we just had this huge fight about who pulls more weight and who should do what because of financial reasons. And I was of the opinion that, like, you know, we all pull our weight in different ways, and cleaning the house, we all live in the house, so we should all clean the house. But no, it became my whole job. It was my sole job to clean a 2-story, 3,000 square foot house all by myself 4,000 square foot house all by myself. Enormous house to clean all by myself.
I helped.
You did help because he witnessed that fight. He was like, that's not fair. That's bullshit. I'm gonna help you clean the house. It's like, good, someone's gonna help me clean the house.
Hey, technically I always tried to help you clean the house.
You did. I think that's when I decided that I couldn't have a good interaction with him, and if I wanted attention, I had to be negative about it. All the methods that I was trying to use to like rekindle our relationship and like mend it and like try to address our problems head on, which he didn't want to address our problems head on unless I did something very like bad, like vague post about him or something. Then he'd come to me and be angry and be like, all right, let's talk about our problems. But like he never wanted to talk about our problems any other way. He'll swear up and down that that's not the case, but it was totally the case. And at some point I just gave up and I was like, I'm just gonna be a bad person, I guess. I'm just gonna, anytime that I need him to do something where we need to work out something, I'm just gonna do something terrible. And it worked, but it destroyed our relationship. Like, we just became too distant and we became very different people, and he just wasn't respecting me, and I wasn't respecting him at the end because like I wasn't getting, the human treatment that, I deserved. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to end this. And I did. And I thought long and hard about how I was going to do it. I was like, well, obviously I don't want Peter to leave me because I love Peter and he's great and I don't want to hurt him. So I have to figure out a way to minimize his hurt as much as possible. And I settled on deleting certain comments that I know that he would see. And I did that over the course of several months.
To be clear, she deleted positive comments about Gwen for several months, and that was kind of shitty. I mean, obviously a lot of this was shitty, but, attacking someone else other than the person that you've got beef with is not good, and you didn't consult me at all. You wanted to save my emotions, but you never actually talked to me about this plan, and then you lied to it about me, and that caused some really, really bad blood between you and me for, like, an entire week. The
reason why I didn't talk to you about it is because I felt like you weren't listening to me either. And I was like, I have to do something. And I deleted comments about her because there's just so many about AJ. And I was all like, he's not going to care or notice that like all of his comments are gone or whatever, because like I'm not going to be able to go through all of these, but like, she was a relatively new asset to the channel. And I was all like, this will be easier. So it wasn't about her. It was never about her. And I know like there are people out there that thinks it was, but it really wasn't. It was literally like, how do I hurt AJ? This is the easiest way to do it. It was a really shitty thing to do, but I don't regret it. And I justify it because I was hurting and I felt like I had no other choice.
Yeah. I just, you said it wasn't ever intended to be about her, but at the same time, we've been talking this whole time about how, abusive actions don't actually have to have the intent of abuse
it's true
to cause pretty major damage.
It's true.
And I guess that for me is why this particular incident hurt so much for me, is because it was you took the step into a land that should never have been.
No, I stooped.
I spent a week not knowing whether I wanted to stay with her again.
It was really risky. I won't lie. I thought about all the scenarios that could possibly happen. I was all like, well, if he does leave me over this, I guess I'll rekindle my relationship with my biological mother and move to Michigan. Whoop-de-doo. Speaking of, there's this letter. I know this isn't part of the video, but it's about abuse and stuff, so whatever. So I get this letter from my mother, and she says, I've learned my lessons. I'm ready now. I'm sorry for all the hurt I've caused for both of us, but I've been working on myself a lot. I just thought you should know I love and I miss you. That's a big step for somebody who like literally just like up and abandoned me when I was a child, and also like has been making my life hell just by being present in it because of like her actions, like, leaving and stuff. So I was very, very proud to receive this letter. There's hope. There's hope for people who have been abused. You may not always get like, letters from like people who have abused you saying that they're sorry or like, they learn their lessons or whatever, but like you can heal
this reminds me of something that's kind of really important, and this is kind of like life advice. If someone is essentially accusing you of being abusive to them, if someone says, you have hurt me to the point that I am traumatized and I can't look at you, that kind of thing, chances are you actually probably still care about that person. You probably don't like hate them and want them to be abused or whatever. If you care about that person, step away from them. Don't try to continually interject yourself. You just said that your mom, who completely abandoned you when you were a kid, constantly came back and tried to reinterject herself without ever apologizing. And hoping and expecting that you would finally forgive her and you two would be able to rekindle something. That's not the way to go, because all she is doing every time she does that, except for this time, is saying, I don't really care about how you feel about me. I only care about, like, feeling good about rekindling ourselves. And that really sucks, and that is actually also abusive. It's really hurtful when a person that you have decided cannot be in your life continues to try to be in your life. So if you are being accused of hurting someone, understand that the best thing you can do for them, if you care about them, is not, if they've already cut you out, it's not to fix the problem. It's to step away until you've worked on yourself, and be okay if when you finally do come back, they say no, and that's it. If you've worked on yourself and you're like, all right, I know what I did wrong, and I can do it better, and you come back to them and you say, hey, can I be back in your life? I'm sorry. If they say no, that's it. Don't push ever.
But I mean, just apologize, even before, like, stepping away and stuff. Like, apologies mean so much, and, like, maybe you don't believe it, but, like, hearing it can be so, like, healing. It's nice to hear, I guess, even if it's not always honest, because it's like false hope to cling to, which can be real hope, which can be healing, which can be,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I disagree with false apologies.
I don't know.
If you don't know what you did wrong and you apologize and say you're not going to do it again, that's actual false hope. And if the person grabs onto that false hope and comes back to you, then you're just going to repeat the same mistakes.
I meant more in the sense of, like, I'm not sorry right now, but I'm going to say sorry. But, like, from the standpoint of, like, I care about this person and I don't understand what I did wrong, but, like, I'm sorry that I guess it ended this way, and I'm going to focus on myself. And then, like, once you, work on yourself or whatever, then you come back and actually give the real apology.
Fair.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
I mean, if you're just going to be like, I'm sorry, and then walk away, then yes, I'm with Peter on that one. But I meant, like, if you honestly care about the person and you're not quite understanding what happened and stuff like that, apologies are great.
Fair.
Even if, like, you don't mean them. So that's what I meant. Not like, just here's a fake apology, I don't give a shit.
Fair
like,
enough.
No, it's like you give a shit, but you're not quite sure what happened. Also, I've had lots of people talk about or ask me, like, what was the abuse? Like, specifically, what was the abuse? So to answer that question, because, like, as we said in the beginning, it's a lot of little things that stack. For me personally, it was all the fights that we had. It was poor time management skills when it came to jobs. I had one comment that has really stuck with me, calling me a liar because we'd have a whole month to do a musical, on some of them, not all of them. And, obviously, if I have, like, no time to do something, then obviously I'm a liar because you had, like, all this time to do it. And it's like, that's not the case. Sometimes what would happen with a musical is that, it would just have this long pause of trying to figure out how to make the musical. And then by the time it would get to me, when everything was all figured out or whatever, I would have, like, a day. And it would be like, okay, I don't know what the fuck to do. I guess we're going to go Goodwill and try to cobble something together. So depending on, like, how the musical was moving in the process would dictate how much time I would get. And more often than not, I wouldn't get the time that I needed to, like, actually make a good costume. And so that would stress me out, like, so much, because I would just be, like, waiting and waiting and waiting. And it was annoying. So that also, felt like, I guess that wasn't exactly abusive, but like I said, little things stack, so it was pushing toward that
The
kind
thing
of
that's
thing.
abusive is holding it against you that the costumes didn't turn out correct
That one, thank you.
when given that
Yeah.
short amount of time to make it happen.
I remember he used an example about a safety pinned hat, and I remember that exact musical being done within a few hours. And I'm like, what do you want me to do with this hat? Because the construction of the hat was such that, like, if I ran it through a sewing machine, it would have gotten caught, and like it just would have been a bad deal. So the easiest thing to do was to safety pin. And whoops, I'm sorry that it didn't look like the most amazing thing ever, but like, to be honest, it's the best that I could have done. Another thing was that, like, he was micromanaging my personal life. I got rid of a lot of friends because of it, because of what he would say about them when they weren't around. When we had problems or whatever, I would usually not hear about it from him. I would usually hear about it from another person. And that drove me up a wall because, like, it makes you wonder, what else are you saying? What else should I be aware about? Like, you know, and it was just, like, a lot of little interactions like that that really fuck with your brain. I constantly felt like I was looking over my shoulder. Like, what is he observing now? What is he going to say about me next? What am I going to hear through the grapevine that I'm doing? And it's just, I didn't feel safe, I guess, is a good way to put it. And all the interactions that we had and all the work that we did, it was never enough. And that also felt terrible. Because, like, a compliment goes a long way. You know, good job, you did it, you know, yatta. You know, and I didn't receive many of those. I actually documented a really big compliment that he gave me once. I put it on Instagram even. It's literally, we were at some convention and, like, the projector something wasn't working, and it was like a Mad Libs thing or whatever, and I happened to have the Mad Libs app on my phone, and I was like, it's not Random Encounters related, but it's Mad Libs, we can have fun with that. And so we pulled that up and did that instead, and he texted me at some point saying, like, that was really good, thank you for saving us. And I put it on Instagram because, like, that was, like, the first time that I got a really big compliment from him. And and when you don't feel validated for your work, it can really hurt too and fuck with you because you just never feel like you're good enough.
Yeah. I experienced a very similar thing where, you know, I actually at one point had to basically beg him to compliment me, to notice the work that I was doing as more than just, oh, he did his job. You know, and, like, yeah, sure, we shouldn't always be, like, ecstatic that someone did their job correctly. Like, yes, but at the same time, you know, when you do your job right over and over and over and over and over again and make someone lots of money, you know, you legitimately, as a human, deserve to be congratulated for your work. You deserve to be told, hey, you did a good job. Thank you for being a rock that I can rely on. And the problem is when you combine not being complimented with being torn down because, you know, you didn't finish your job satisfactorily because you didn't have enough time, and, you know, all of these other things, it piles up. And again, in isolation, any one of these things is totally normal and reasonable and human interaction.
Oh my
blah,
gosh.
blah, blah.
And sometimes he would take over my job, and I would just be like, go work on the musical. Go work on the other parts that need actual help. I'm fine here. Just because I'm not doing it the way you deem it needs to be done, it's going to get done. Just go do something else. And that was also, like, demoralizing, dehumanizing,
Sure.
to do something. It was bad. I remember when, like, they would watch Game of Thrones in the house, and, like, that show really, like, hits a nerve with me because of all the rape and stuff that's in it, and, like, that's a still sore topic for me. And, like, I came to them about it. I was like, okay, look, this show makes me really uncomfortable. If you could we can compromise. If you would just sometimes watch it at like her place or somewhere else, that would be wonderful. And, it's to my face. He said, yeah, sure. And then they went over to her place once. Just once. And what?
I was just going to say, I begged so many times. I was like, just this time, over to her place, please. But, I can't.
And so, and I did another shitty thing because of it. I exploded. And I threw the biggest hissy fit ever because at one point they decided to just watch it in his room, AJ's room. And I was all like, that's a loophole. That is bullshit. And I'm not going to stand for it. So eventually they went to a hotel, but they resented me for it. And like, I get it. Like, if all these little things didn't happen, that would be completely unreasonable and completely like, wow, she's a super bitch. But because of all these little things that stacked, it felt completely like reasonable to be like, you're literally disrespecting me right now. What the fuck?
Yeah, it was really, really frustrating for me because I was like, I really like this show. I even enjoy watching it with these people, which by that time had become really rare. I didn't like watching media with them for various reasons I won't get into. And it was really frustrating because all of a sudden I had this thing where I was like, I like the show, I like watching it with you guys, but every time we watch it, we are disrespecting the woman that I love. And I beg you to go elsewhere with it. I beg you to go to, Gwen's place, but it never happens. And, in retrospect, I probably should have just said, okay, I'm not going to watch it. And,
then they would have watched it in the house anyway.
That's the problem. They would have watched it in the house anyway. But at least I could have been with you to, hold you or whatever. Yeah. But either way, it was awful. And I
even offered to pay for when I had that big explosion, I even offered to pay for the whole hotel room. And they were like, no, don't worry about it. It's okay. And I'm like, I'm the one throwing a fit. I mean, I should be the one that is, so I paid him some money for it, but like, it's just those kinds of things that it was all bad. Yeah. It was all bad. And he was shitty to me and I was shitty to him. And, some of the things I did could be considered abusive. And I can accept that. But most of my abusive tendencies were because I was being abused, and I'm a very reactionary person. Hey guys, it's Sparrow from the future. I totally forgot to talk about abuse enabling. And the story that I like to tell, which isn't exactly it's just probably the most extreme case, is Gwen's friend who came to visit us at one point. And for whatever reason, she decided to go around the table that we were all sitting at and touch our butts. And so she did it once. And I said, hey, look, this is uncomfortable. Please don't touch my butt. She did it again. And everyone's like giggling or like trying to position themselves in a way where she can't touch their butt. And so she did it a second time. And I threatened her. I said, look, if you do it again, I'm going to, hit you with this hammer, because there was a hammer close by or whatever. And for whatever reason, she decided to do it a third time. So I chased her around the house with a hammer. And Gwen was just being all like, oh, it's just her way. She's, nuts, and it's kind of fun. She's a fun person, and just kind of giggling and laughing it off. And I was not there for it. I wanted to call the police. They talked me down from that. And that whole experience really left a bad taste in my mouth, which also ties into, people have asked me, what my problem with Gwen is. And that was one of the bigger things. At first, I tried to be her friend because, new people, she was nice and friendly or whatever. But then after a while, with the whole sexual assault thing, certain interactions that we had, I decided to not be her friend, but try to be friendly because, she's very much a part of AJ's life. And because I was trying to, rekindle old friendship, whatever, with AJ, I didn't want to just, go off on her about stuff. So that's basically it. It's not anything terrible or bad except for the one encounter with her friend. it's that kind of behavior that telling people that like, oh yeah, your behavior is okay, don't worry about like, you know, people saying no to you or whatever, that allows abuse to continue. Peter is also guilty of this. I would constantly ask Peter, hey, look, I'm having a problem, I really need some help here, and he wouldn't help me. So it's kind of like the same concept. If you're witnessing somebody enable abuse, it's important to stand up to that and help people when they need it. And also take people who are screaming about, you know, hey, this isn't okay, please stop, to take them seriously.
So yeah, we finally moved out, and you know, I was working with them for a while, and
Oh, it killed me.
It killed you, and I didn't realize that it was continuing to kill me. So finally, I took a 3-month hiatus. Basically, right after I wanted to kill myself that one time, I was like, okay, something's wrong. I need to figure it out because this is bad. So, you know, I took a 3-month hiatus, as you know.
And I just want to be clear, because I've had some comments about like him taking his hiatus and how it was all my fault and that kind of thing. I didn't tell him to do it.
No, it was entirely my idea. I was like, okay, 3 months is a pretty reasonable amount of time for me to try to figure out what I'm doing with my life, try to figure out what's wrong with me, and all of that stuff.
But a lot of people seem to think that I'm this manipulative bitch, and I've just been like pulling his arm to like, you know, do all these things. And no, he's pretty much done them all. The only thing that I did was in the very beginning when, like, you know, he was crying on the couch because he wasn't creative, was I literally pointed out that he was creative. That's it. That's all I did. I was like, you're creative. The reason why you don't feel like you're creative is because your creativity is being squashed. That was my big manipulative moment, guys. That's it.
At that point, I started rewinding in my head and seeing all of the times that it was, and I was like, oh, yeah, I've literally had to yell about this before, and I didn't even recognize that it was as big a problem as it was. I was just frustrated and yelled that I needed to be, you know, given a little more freedom, and I needed to be told I was doing a good job, and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we were actually doing really well for a while.
Oh yeah, we were definitely making progress.
Even after the 3 months, I went back to random encounters.
And I was okay with him doing that even. Like, there were a few moments where, like, things got a little weird, and I was mad about it. There's tweets about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But,
you know, for the most part, it was like, it was
most
kind
of it was time management stuff anyway.
It was kind of okay, but over time, you know, as I continued to work, I was just like, you know what, I think this is over. I think I'm done, and I need to leave.
I actually pushed for him to stay.
She did.
I pushed. I was like, look, you created this too. You should totally find a way to be a part of this, but also not do the work that you've come to hate. Like,
but you know, I just felt like I wasn't a part of it anymore anyway, even though I, you know, was doing stuff for it. And I was like, okay, this needs to end. And so recently we started working on a contract to end my, work at Random Encounters completely. The contract was hell. Working through the contract.
It was not friendly. It was polite and civil. There is a difference. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Getting through the contract was really hard because there were some points that we knew were going to come up, and we knew they were going to be contentious. And it
was only because I had to be part of it.
Yeah.
If it was just between him and AJ, it would have been smooth sailing. But the minute I came, had to be part of it, it got like 10 times more hostile.
Yeah. Basically,
the reason why it was hostile, I guess, is because like there were things in the contract that they wanted to happen, like basically to silence me, and we weren't going to have it. So.
So yeah, it was really hard. It was really contentious, and you know, it was literally the entire purpose was to say, all right, Peter is done with Random Encounters. He doesn't keep any of the, you know, ideas or intellectual property or anything like that. He does, he does get some back pay so that he can make a life of his own as a founder. That's something that's important. And you know, it just dragged on for 45 days, somewhere around 45 days. We all knew we wanted to be done by the new year, and we literally signed on New Year's Eve.
It's over. So that's the compensation, really, I guess. and with time I won't be so mad and salty about it, but
You know,
they wouldn't talk to me.
That's my fault.
Oh, is it?
Well, yeah,
Oh.
I remember I was the one who was like, you have this option to talk to them directly, but it's probably going to be a lot easier if you don't.
Yeah.
Um,
Peter really did push for me not to talk to them.
For me, the reason it didn't feel friendly was because Sparrow and I would agonize at night, you know, wondering if the latest change that we added would be accepted. And then we would agonize for, you know, a week because a change that we did in a day would take like a week before they looked at it. And
Yeah.
that was, I think, the hardest part was the waiting. And it's waiting that, you know, didn't affect them at all. You know, they had no reason to, you know, wonder at night whether their waiting was going to hurt them, but it hurt us.
We
and
cried. There was a lot of crying. I've had nightmares
Mhm.
about it.
So have I. You know, literally all of this was so that I could sell my baby away. And at the same time, I was getting, you know, torn apart in all different types of ways because of the amount of time that it was taking. And we just wanted to be done with all of it. And I'm excited for the future where I get to heal and I get to create and you get to heal and you get to create.
Oh, I'm so excited for what you're going to do. Screw my shit. I'm so excited for you.
I'm going to try to start Twitch streaming the development of a video game that I've had an idea for since before Random Encounters.
Do tell.
It's a stupid mobile game where you fly around as a bird and you shit on things. There are a couple games like that on the App Store, and they're all terrible. I have not played a single one that's actually enjoyable. So my intent is to create one that is enjoyable. There is a hook that I can't talk about, and I'm not going to talk about ever until it actually goes live. But there is a hook that I'm going to hide from all of the development streams and blah 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 that is probably going to make this incredibly profitable. So I'm also really excited about that.
It's a really good idea.
This was Connie's idea, to be fair.
Oh, it's a really good idea, Connie. I know you're going to watch this video.
I'll also probably be doing gameplay on Twitch and stuff. Like, I mean, you got to research, right?
I am writing an album. I already know its name, and I already know its album cover. It's called Pretty Petty. And it is a whole entire album about abuse.
Yay!
Fun fact.
You've kind of become a abuse advocate over the last couple of years.
Well, technically one, because it's only been a year.
That's a fair point.
Though, I mean, I have talked about my
previous abuses. Yeah,
I have been. Okay, so maybe I haven't, but I haven't been as vocal about it until this happened.
Yeah,
because
the difference is,
I don't know, this one really resonated with me a lot.
It's because it started so good. It's because it started as a real family.
It's true.
And when real family breaks up, that hurts more than just going into a situation where you're like, okay, this is going to be shit, and this person's not a great person.
I guess that's true.
You know?
I think that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking through old photos, and I saw our Christmas card that one year, and we just looked so happy, and, like, I miss it.
Yeah.
I miss it so much. But it hurt to look at, and that sucked, too.
There was a Facebook page that Sparrow made that was all about stuff that, you know, happened in all of our lives as a family unit, really. And I was looking at that page, and I was like, we had some really amazing times, and
we had a good run for 2 years, and 2 whole years.
I very much also miss all of that, and I wish I could have it back, and I can't, and so I have to move on. Even in the years where it was shitty, there were some really good times.
There were some good moments.
Like there were, you know,
we really did try to make it work, but just all the little things that kept stacking up that never got resolved, that never got, you know, fixed or anything. That's what killed everything.
Yeah.
And all that's to blame is just us.
So like we said in the beginning, hopefully this is the last major video ever talking about this.
If my album does blow up and people want interviews or whatever, then I will talk about the inspiration, which would be this whole time in my life and stuff like that. So there might be some videos like that in the future, but definitely nothing like this.
Yeah.
This is it. I hope this was informative and it's as complete a picture as we can make it
without giving like explicitly confidential information that we're not allowed to give.
Because we did sign a contract, so there are some things that I will never be able to say. Well, at least for the duration of the contract. What was the compliment you gave me that one time?
I basically said that I am constantly impressed by how much you don't attack or villainize despite your strong public language. You have all the reason in the world in your head to say all sorts of awful things, and you never do. And your level of restraint is impressive despite what certain people would probably say about that restraint. So I basically sent her that on Discord after she had tweeted some stuff that I'm like, oh God, don't say that, but also here's the truth and this is how I feel about you, and it's amazing and impressive.
It's the best compliment he's ever given me.
Which is also impressive considering.
He gave me the best compliment years ago before we were in together, and he had been reading about brain stuff.
Basically, there were images showing what the brain looks like when you're trying actively to remember something. Sparrow and I were at sushi, and she was thinking about something really hard, and so all I could think about in my head was like those images of the brains just lighting up with all these pathways and neurons, and I was like, your brain is probably really beautiful right now. And she was like, what do I do? So
it was pretty good. So
I thought I would never
topped it recently.
I thought I would never top it, but apparently I did.
No, he did.
So there's hope. Now I have a harder thing to top.
Because no one praises me for that. Like, everybody just says I'm a tactless asshole. And no one ever really says, you know what, you got something in there.
Anyway.
So to recap, Random Encounter started off really good. And then something happened, and we're not quite sure what. And then it became really bad, and we tried to fix it, but it just never got fixed. And it became a toxic hellhole, and we left. And I do want to continue this video just a little bit. The RE that is now, that does not include us, is a really good group of people. It's a hard thing to say because of what we went through, but at the moment of filming this video...
It's like it was when you started.
It was like when we were, a group. And it's really working for them, and they're really happy, and that's great, I guess. It's really hard to say that not all people are made for each other. And just because someone abuses someone doesn't mean that they're going to abuse everyone. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, don't go on their videos being like, you are terrible and abusive and blah, 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 because, like, this is what happened in the past, and it's not currently happening now because everything is over. I mean, when the contract was happening, that was subjectively abusive, but, like, it's over now. So we're all moving in different directions, and it's not something that needs to, I guess, perpetuate, if that makes sense. No one asked me to say any of that.
Yeah.
So I've been tweeting about that, and I've been writing posts and being on social media saying things like that, is that, like, he is making steps to either be a better person, or he just found the people that fit him. If you have any questions, I will look at the comments and answer what I can. Obviously, there is a contract, so there are some specific things that I'm not allowed to say, like financial information and whatever. But I will answer what I can. Maybe Peter will too. I don't know.
I have no idea how active.
He does work with me now. Like, he's going to edit this video and edit a bunch of other videos and also help me mix music and stuff. So he's mine now. Happy New Year. I intend to basically go back to putting out a video once a week, maybe more. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to balance making an album and putting out content, but I definitely intend to not be so bedridden anymore with depression and scared to, like, live my life. So I guess look forward to that. Yeah. Also, Sketty Eddie will be coming back.
And we'll be making announcements probably on your channel as well when I start up my Twitch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So don't ask us where it is yet, because I don't know where it is yet.
I'm definitely going to help you.
Thank you.
Even though I'm small.
Anywho.
So yeah, let's get Peter out of this hot box.
Bye.
So
So this has honestly been a thing for a while, and I have been holding off doing this video because I want to use the right words. So I want to be honest, but I don't really want to slander anybody, but you know, the circumstances were not great. And just so we're clear, I am very grateful and thankful for the opportunity of collaborating so much with Random Encounters and stuff like that. But, you know, there's just a lot of bad jujubes, and it's done. It's over. Also, no matter what I say, please don't go harass them or harass me or whatever. Let's just all be cool about this. Think of it like a Yelp review. Like, you know, there's all these voices in the sea. Mine is just one of many, okay? And lots of people have different experiences, and it's okay to have different experiences, so let's just all be cool about this, okay? So in the beginning, Random Encounters was a vastly different company than it is today. Because unlike today, where they like push out content like literally every week, back then it was very different. They made a musical like maybe every month. If they had other types of content, that might go up at some point, but like it wasn't as structured as it is today. So working for them on projects was a lot easier because I had more time to get all the resources I needed to make whatever they needed me to make. But as they became more structured and they were pumping out content or whatever, I would literally get a week's notice to make expert craftsmanship costumes or props or whatever, and I personally can't do that. So I would try to find solutions that I could do in the short amount of time, and well, they didn't like that very much. And yes, by they, I do mean AJ, because technically he is the head of this company. So I was put in this position to try to make something that I could make in a short amount of time that would meet his high standards, and it would always fall short. And I'm like, I can't help that I have no time to do anything, and I'm sorry that the thing that I made isn't pleasing. Let's see, we would butt heads on ideas, and if he didn't want them, that's fine. His channel, his rules, you know, but the thing that would irk me the most, and he didn't do this with just me, it's like basically anybody that he's ever worked for, he will hear an idea, complain about it or just disregard it or whatever, then think about it later and say it was his idea. And it's like, no, it wasn't, but, you know, whatever, fine. So basically all of these gripes that I have right now are petty bullshit. Like, whatever, you know, you're gonna complain about your boss is gonna complain about you. It's just the way that the work thing happens, and like, whatever, you move on with your life. But I think the defining moment in our working relationship was just the blatant disrespect. And if you ever work with him on a short-term basis, you probably never will experience this. But if you work with him long-term like I have, it took Peter to tell me that this was a thing, but when like I noticed it, I was like, holy shit, this is horrible. And we're not sure if it's because I'm a woman or not, because like all the other long-term employees happen to be male, but you know, it would manifest itself in things like talking over me, ignoring me, basically treating me like I'm inferior, and it just was like, I can't really deal with this. Like, he'll probably tell you to your face that you did a wonderful job, but then complain about aspects of whatever you did to people that aren't you. Another thing that was really hard to navigate was that he had two personas. So he had one that he would show like the whole internet, and then he had, you know, his personal whatever persona. And what this meant for working with him is that, like, you know, he has his one, everybody knows him as this, but then he's really like this. And so it was hard to navigate of like, well, what do I say to people when they ask me, oh, what's it like to work with AJ? What's it like to do this and that and the other thing? Because like he wants people to see him one way, but he's acting a different way. And so, you know, me, I'm fucking honest and stuff. So it was really hard to just figure out what I was supposed to say. So a lot of the times I just avoided that question altogether because I didn't want to, well, fuck up anything, because the last time that I said things that apparently I shouldn't, we got into a fight about it. And I'm totally not without fault. Like, I'm sure there are reasons why he acted the way he did, but the problem with working in a business that is so closely related to your personal life, the lines of, like, what's acceptable and what isn't get blurred all the time, so you just never know what exactly made this happen, and it's frustrating, and ugh. And I was stuck in this job because I live in like fucking Nowhereville, USA. My resume is not the greatest. I look like crap on paper. So trying to get a job outside of RE is just, it's hard, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm a try my hardest to, you know, be financially stable, because obviously I don't work with Random Encounters anymore. I need somewhere to get some moolah, you know? Also, some of you have been donating to Random Encounters Patreon and stuff. in hopes that I will see some of that money, but I don't. I have my own Patreon. You can donate to that. I will see that money. And all this shit took a toll on my psyche. Like, you can literally see the evolution in my content of, like, how this took a toll. And I'm not talking about, like, my first videos, because believe it or not, this channel has been around before Random Encounters existed. They're only more successful because of the type of content they make and because they kept at it, and I didn't take my channel seriously, and so that's why I have, like, basically no subscribers or views, and I know that, but, like, we're not comparing apples and oranges here. We're talking about why I no longer work for them. And you might not think these things are bad, but, like, think about it this way, okay? So, like, say you have a retail job, right? So you have a boss, you don't like your boss, he, like, puts all these demands on you, maybe he's an asshole, whatever. You can go home and vent about it. Maybe you post it on social media saying something like, you know, my boss sucks or whatever, and chances are he's never gonna find it because, you know, your work life is separate from your life. If I were to do the same thing, well, I lived with my boss, and we were friends on Facebook, so if I were to go, my boss sucks, he'd see it. And then it would create a whole new problem because my work life is not separate from my life. And when that is a thing, the problems tend to get 10 times worse. And it's simply because personal lives and business lives are intertwined. You literally cannot blow off steam without, well, offending somebody. And if I had the friends, well, maybe the ventings that I needed to do wouldn't have shown up on Facebook. But because of this job, I basically cut off a lot of people from my life because I was either always busy or I was angry and depressed as fuck. And that's another reason why I needed to not have this job anymore, is because it was literally soul-sucking for me personally. And I know there are so many people out there that are like, oh my gosh, I would love this job. And in the beginning I did too. But then after so much of the shit that had happened, I just... I'm a different person than I was now, and I believe that a lot of it has come from working with Random Encounters, unfortunately. And look, it's honestly different strokes for different folks. Like, some people are going to work better with some people, and some people are not. For instance, AJ and Peter work beautifully together. AJ and me, not so much. And that's okay. For, like, whatever reason that all of these events transpired, it is honestly okay for two people not to work very well with each other, which is why I don't want you to go over there and harass him because we didn't work well together, okay? There are a lot of good qualities about him. He just happens to have been a very terrible boss for me, okay? And if he's ever open and honest about this situation, I'm sure he will tell you I'm a terrible employee for A, B, and C reasons, okay? And now the question that probably everybody is thinking, will I be in another Random Encounters musical? And to be honest, I don't know. There has been some personal bad jujubes that have been going around right now, so I think everybody just needs to take a step back and heal before we have an answer. I mean, maybe they have an answer. I don't know. I haven't talked to them about it, to be honest. But now that I'm free, wow, that is not even quotation marks. Now that I am free, I do hope that you will continue to support my channel, and as I am able to pour my life force into trying to make this channel somewhat sustainable financially, that I will bring back some of the old types of content that I used to love to do, and also evolve into the kind of YouTuber that, well, is a YouTuber instead of just, I don't know, some girl in her bedroom just making bullshit, basically. Also, if you followed me because of my involvement with Random Encounters, I am super sorry, but I do not do the same content as they do. I also swear, if you've noticed or haven't, I don't know, but I swear I was never a kid-friendly channel. I mean, and like, half of you watch Markiplier anyway. You're gonna complain about me cussing? Fucking really? So I suppose if you have any questions about this situation, I will answer them selectively. I am trying to keep this animosity free as possible because I have no ill will against the company, but because of the personal stuff right now, I'm kind of sorting out how I feel about people, and I rather not say things in the heat of the moment, which is super unusual for me, but like, this situation is super serious. Like, I was gonna do another video, but like, whatever. Peter and I are moving out because of bad jujubes, alright? So I am trying my very hardest not to drag anybody through the mud more so than they needed to be, and, you know, throw them under the bus and stuff. Like, I am trying to keep this as what is it, amicable, amiable, whatever, one of those words as possible. And I think it did an okay job. I lightly gleaned on all the topics that needed to be talked about. I didn't really want to get too heavy into it because I could easily just rant about it forever. Like, we just used to be so good. And then change happened. And everything just kind of fell apart. And it hurts. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And now we just gotta move on and hope there are better things out there, So yeah, I'll see you when I see you. Don't harass them, please. Don't harass me, please. And I'm gonna just end. Before I get into all of this, I just want you to know that it ended amicably. We're still living together. We're still working together. We're still friends. Everything is actually okay. So once upon a time, I was heavily involved in RE stuff, and one of my responsibilities was to be in charge of Replayed. Replayed, if you don't know, is the gaming channel of Random Encounters, and it wasn't doing so hot, so they kind of just let it fall to the wayside, and I believed in it. I said, no, we can make this work, because clearly other people have made it work. Let me give it a shot. And they were like, okay, fine. So I started researching game trends. What's popular? What's coming out? Who's playing what? Who cares about who? And from there, I built up a channel, and it started growing and flourishing, and it was great. But it wasn't doing enough to their liking. So I thought to myself, and I said, you know what? Let's make a show. Let's make a gaming-related show where it will just be an umbrella kind of thing, where we will either make skits or maybe reviews or stuff that is just gaming that is not a Let's Play. And as you know, it was called Gamernality, and I made that. I didn't create all the content under the umbrella, but I did create the concept, which flourished the creativity of the content that exists. And because they kept saying, well, this is your channel, you spearhead it, you do all these things, I felt that it was my property, it was mine. But they felt differently. They felt that it was theirs since it was under their brand, and they talked about decimating parts of Gamernality to put on Random Encounters, and I was not cool with that. And the way that it was presented to me felt like they were stealing from me. And that sent me into a fury of, well, how do I stop them from doing this? And since things felt like everything was getting a bit hostile, I was researching what I could do to create a lawsuit. And within that research, I found credible arguments that would enable me to possibly have a case. And I found 3 arguments that would allow me to have a case. One being contract negligence, which basically means that there was no written evidence provided to me to dictate what I owned, what I didn't own. Most companies will do this in a creative environment, but since they neglected to do so, also that they are not a company, contract negligence fits this to a bill. 2 being misinformation, because they kept saying things like, you're in charge of this channel, you do what you think you need to do, we'll follow suit, blah, 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 blah. So that made me think that, okay, well, since, I'm in charge of this, I own whatever I do. The 3rd being creative infringement, which I basically explained throughout this whole video. With all of these things combined, if my argument was found favorable, or that I could prove all these things, which I can prove a lot of them, it would have been case closed, I win. So I basically wrote them up a very formal email detailing that, I want Gamernality, the name, the brand. I don't care about the content that was made under it. If somehow they started making content that looked strangely similar to what Gamernality used to have, that I would turn a blind eye, as long as they would give me Gamernality. And if they refused to, well, then I would take them to court. That email apparently helped bring everything to light, because there was apparently a big misunderstanding. They didn't actually want to steal things from me. They gave me Gamernality, but there was some other shit that happened during all of that caused me to lose some status with Random Encounters. For instance, they thought I was going to delete their channel, so they revoked access. And I would never actually delete their channel, because most of my money comes from Random Encounters, and all of their money basically comes from all the things they do on Random Encounters. And I don't like being homeless, but when you're in a situation where everything is just escalating and you don't know how to know what's coming next, you just take as many safety measures as you can. So I feel no ill will over that. And because of that safety measure, I am no longer in charge of a lot of random encountery things. So I am free to be my own agent again, and it's kind of nice, which is why you'll be seeing me a lot more on my own channel, doing some of the things that I couldn't do because I was just too busy. That whole ordeal was really a blessing in disguise, because Random Encounters was taking a toll on me, and I became a bitter, angry human because I felt creatively squelched. And I didn't know that at the time until all of this happened, and then I was free, and I was all like, oh, a weight is lifted off my shoulders and I feel great. So now I'm officially a frequent collaborator of Random Encounters, but the lines are still kind of blurred about exactly what that is, because obviously on their channel I'm known as Miss Bird, and on my own channel I'm known as Sparrow Rayne. So once they actually become a real company, maybe we'll figure out all those lines and stuff. But for now, I help them when they need me, and they help me when I need them. So sorry that this video was a bit of a downer, but there were some uplifting points. But I guess I'll see you when I see you, and take care, guys. Okay, bye.